It's Carl here again with another video. Hopefully you remembered the stuff from the last video where I talked a little bit about God, mind, emotions, body, circumstances, and how they all fitted together. And you remembered that mind was probably the key. It's how you think and the choices you make tend to determine everything else in both directions. This video, I want to move on a little bit from there. I want to start looking at some of the key emotions, mostly the bad ones, the emotional problems, and a little bit of the thought patterns that go with them. So my basic thinking here is, well, probably seems simple enough. Don't just feel bad and miserable and universally cranky about things. That doesn't help you, doesn't help anybody else, especially you. You're the one we're talking about. If you can learn a simple process of just slowing down, focusing on the fact that you don't feel so good, and try to analyse what's going on. Okay, just ask the basic who, what, when, where, how sorts of questions about your feelings. So you say, well, what do I feel? Do I feel cranky? Do I feel impatient? Do I feel frustrated? Do I feel unloved? Do I feel like I want to kill somebody? What do I feel? Can I give it some kind of a label? How badly do I feel it? Did I always feel this way? Was there a particular period in my life where I was doing okay and I was happy? Kapow, something happened, something shifted, and since then I've had this bad feeling. You might ask, well, have I had it continuously ever since then, or does it come and go? Is it easing with time or getting worse with time? Okay, is there a trigger? Does something sort of set me off for these things? Okay, so that's the basic idea. You analyse your emotion, what it is, where you got it from, how bad it is, and then you can start trying, can I let it go? Can I drop it? Can I analyse it to death and minimise it so it doesn't bother me? But as long as you're in this ballpark and you're doing something about it, you're making some progress. And one good question to ask yourself while you're at this is, am I prepared to drop it? Okay, if I can find a way to simply drop this emotion, this bad feeling, this problem, and walk away from it, can I do it? And the reason I ask that one is because some people get to identify with their problem. Worst case scenario, something happened, you were unjustly ripped off, you got really angry about it, but now you are chronically angry and you use that one-off, maybe worse, bad experience for being angry, and you take your anger out on everybody else. Now, of course, when they say, what are you so angry about? You come back and say, well, I can't help it because, okay, if you can just forget the and drop it, what's to stop you being a happy person? Now, do you like being angry? Do you like having an excuse for being angry? Or are you really prepared to drop it and let go? Okay? Some of you might want to think about that for a minute, but you can apply the same line of thinking to being a stress head or someone who's feeling guilty or anything else. Are you prepared to let it go? Okay. The basic emotions I want to talk about briefly are stress, anxiety, shock, trauma, same kind of category here, loss and grief, depression, anger, guilt, and the big one of all is feeling unloved. Call it broken-hearted, rejected, but somewhere in that, I am not feeling love. Okay. With each of these things, there will be, there is the emotion, but there's often a sort of personality quirk or a kind of thinking pattern that goes with it, because these things do not just happen to everybody in equal measure. They happen more often to some people than others. Okay, let's start with a common one. Stress. I'm stressed out, I'm stressed off my head, I've got too much to do, not enough time to do it with, and woe is me, I'm cracking up. Everybody I know feels some version of this at some point. The typical thing says, this has happened, this has happened, this has happened, this has happened, and all these other things are just coming at me and I can no longer cope. Okay? It certainly can seem like that, and sometimes it might even be like that. But let's have a bit more of a think about it. Are you the kind of person where you get a bit overambitious? Do you take on too many things? Maybe you like to run a bit close to the line where you use up every amount of energy, every bit of time you've possibly got on your chosen projects, and you've got no slack in there for anything else to go wrong. So as soon as something else happens, you're pushed over the edge. So you're overambitious. Do you set very high standards for yourself? Maybe to the point where you're a perfectionist or a nitpicker. Does it have to be done to those high standards? How about the deadline and times? Yes, you can have deadlines that are imposed on you, but are they set in cement? Can you shift the deadline? Does it have to be done by 5 o'clock tomorrow? Can you renegotiate? Okay, if you can't renegotiate the deadline, can you do something about the quality? So instead of doing it to your high standards, you do it to a lesser standard to make sure it's done on time. Maybe you've got to make a decision. Is it better to be done right or on time? Because sometimes you just don't get both. Then there's the control sort of thing. I want to do it all because it's got my name all over it. Okay, I can appreciate that. But can you delegate some of it? Can you get other people to help you? And I don't mean do it like a control freak or a micromanager so that you're watching over their shoulder all the time. Once you can sort of offload this task and just give it to someone else, it's done, gone, forgotten. Okay? I'll give you a few ideas on how to do it. If you want big sort of examples, I mean, this is one that I sort of got stuck with, and I'm sure most people, once they get past 50, get some version of it. You've got to look after your parents. They're getting old, they're getting doddery, they're getting incompetent. It's a bit of a drama in itself every which way you look at it, but they're a bottomless pit. You cannot possibly spend all of your life, while you've still got a partner, kids, job, whatever else, you cannot spend all of your life trying to manage them, look after them and manage their affairs. What's the answer? You delegate. You put them in an old folks home or an assisted living area. It might go against the grain a bit and you might have a few issues, but it solves, or at least it minimises, manages that problem a bit better. Okay, maybe you haven't got to that problem yet. Let's move on a little bit. How about we get to anxiety? Now, anxiety is a generalised fear. You are scared of something, maybe you can't quite identify what it is, maybe there's a whole string of things that you are scared about, but basically you are worried and you're expecting some kind of bad thing or things to happen to you. Often this will go with the stress thing, I've got too much to do, and in which case the bad things you think are going to happen is I'm going to be embarrassed, I'm going to be left looking stupid, I am going to screw up, I am going to get the sack, someone's going to leave me, but it's all bad because I didn't perform like I said I was or like I expected I would. That's just one form. Then you get other people who manage to spread their anxiety to everything. Not only am I going to screw something up, but my wife's going to leave me, the boss is going to sack me, my kids are going to think I'm a complete screw-up, I'll ruin their lives forever. Yeah, okay. And there are people like that. I mean, then there are guys who sort of focus on their health. One bloke I knew was always worried he was going to have a heart attack, and he was going to die instantly. Okay. Did he do every health check and things known to mankind? Oh yeah, he did them regularly, but it still didn't stop him. He's still anxious about it. Okay, same kind of process. If you feel anxious, ask yourself all these basic questions. Who, what, when, where, how, why. Have I always had the problem? Was I okay up until kapow, and then I've got it? And then sort of analyse your problems rationally as you can. What am I scared about happening? Try and nail it down, pin it down. What are the realistic chances of this happening? Mostly not very big, sometimes almost zero. Okay, if it does happen, what's the worst that could happen to me? Okay, could I live with that? Could I somehow take out some insurance or modify it a bit so that it wouldn't be so bad? Even if it does happen and I can't do any of that, could I recover from that? Now, usually when you go through this process with anybody who's anxious, they'll have a bit of trouble pinning down what they're anxious about, but when you start to do that, you're well on the way to cracking the problem. Here's what I'm anxious about. What are the realistic chances of it happening? If it does happen, how bad can it possibly be? Could I live with that? Okay, what's the worst that can happen? What's the most likely thing that can happen? What's the best that can happen? Okay, if you can talk yourself around and think yourself around, you can get rid of this whole anxiety problem. Not many people can totally shift it, but you can minimise it. Okay, let's try the shock trauma area. Something big, bad, scary, maybe painful has happened. And not something you expected usually. Occasionally you did expect it, but you still can't stop yourself feeling the shock and trauma. Like maybe the death of one of your friends or family that's been seriously ill. Okay, the bottom line for this one says, whatever happened, it has really shaken you up. You are not thinking the same, you're not feeling the same, the world is not the friendly, happy place it used to be. I am not the confident, happy kind of person I used to be. Everything has shifted, and in a bad way. Now, the shock trauma, it often goes with the sort of grief and loss, and it can underlie a lot of the other problems. So certainly it can cause you a whole pile of stress, and it can cause you to be anxious about things in the future. So often a lot of emotions will tie back to some kind of shock trauma event in your life. But shift the focus a little bit to loss and grief. You had someone or something in your life, they were very important to you, now they're gone. This might be the death of someone, like a parent, a favourite grandparent, a partner, a child. That's particularly hard. Could be a sibling, could be separation, divorce kind of stuff, like I had a happy marriage and now I don't. Could be your job, I had a great job, place went broke or something, I got sacked, I was unjustly accused, I'm out. Okay, could be any of those things. You might have lost a body part or some capacity. You might have lost a house or a car. I mean, you can be one of these dead set unlucky people who loses everything all at once. And this is not impossible, because I've known, at least one of these things to happen, where somebody's business goes broke. Not only are they now unemployed, they're also financially bankrupt. They're now kicked out of the house, they've lost all of that, they've lost the car, they've lost all their possessions, and then their wife leaves them just for good measure and takes the kids with them, and they're left with absolutely nothing. Okay, not surprisingly, this was a bit of a rude shock, and they were seriously upset about it. So, whatever's happened to you, it's probably not quite that bad. Um, okay, once again, got to try and analyse the whole thing and figure it out the best way you can. Can life go on without this person, this thing that is missing? The answer is yeah, it will go on. Of course, life is like that. It just keeps rolling. You're either on the train or you're not. You can't stay stuck in that grief spot forever. So even though it hurts, and even though it sort of knocks you for six, the person, if they're gone, they're not coming back. You just got to accept that and kind of patch up the holes and do the best that you can. If the person has died and they were a loved one, all right, they're not coming back. If you understand the whole spiritual side that I've been trying to tell you about up to now, you might take a little bit of comfort from the fact that they haven't really sort of vaporised and disappeared. I mean, their essence still exists, and you will catch up with them later. But I know that doesn't fill the big gap that's been left in your life right here, right now. I don't think anything ever quite will, but you'll manage. You'll learn. Right, let's try depression. Now, depression is like overwhelming sadness, a sense of hopelessness or something, but you feel miserable and life sucks real bad. Once again, maybe this is like a permanent condition, maybe it sort of comes and goes. Maybe you were okay in life until something bad happened, and you've been depressed ever since. Might feel like something in particular, so things like a wet blanket, a fog, a damp cloud, a certain blackness, those sorts of things are common descriptions. Often, this is related to one of the loss and grief things, or the trauma things, or both. But you can also get depressed as a physical exhaustion thing. So the stressy, anxious people might hit some kind of adrenal fatigue state where they really can't put one foot after the other and they feel really bad about it. One special case might be postnatal depression. It's such a big effort you put up during childbirth, and this thing has so dramatically changed your whole life. You have so many different things going on and absolutely no energy and all these instant demands on you. Yeah, I can understand people getting depressed from that. We'll do one on that later. Okay, probably a very rare breed, but again, they exist because I've met them, is you occasionally have someone who quite frankly tell you, look, I am depressed, I am miserable, my life thoroughly sucks, it always has, I have always been depressed, I was born depressed, and I'm still depressed. Yeah, okay, they exist, but they're not the normal thing. So, okay, if you're a bit depressed, you're going to try and analyse it about the when, where, how, and how bad, and find out what you can do to sort of turn off the bad feeling and focus on the good feeling. Again, you just do what you can do and sort of analyse it to death. Let's move on to anger. This one means you've not only lost something, or you did not get something that you thought you should get, but this time you got somebody to blame for it. And that's important, because now you can put all of your bad feelings onto this person. Anger commonly goes with the loss and the grief and the shock and the trauma. It can go with the stress and the sense of frustration. It can go with the anxiety thing because other people don't think the same way as you and don't help you out. It very commonly goes with family breakups. It's a serious feature in all sorts of people in criminal kind of settings because the anger got the better of them. If you've come from a dysfunctional family, or you're an abused kid or an institutionalised kid, anger is probably one of your regular companions. There are a lot of people out there with a reason to be angry, and a lot of people carry an angry chip with them. Now, hopefully, you can sit down and sort of analyse it and say, all right, I'm angry at this particular person or situation because this particular thing happened. If you can pin it down, well, other people who aren't that one, or at least like that one, are innocent. You don't have to be angry at them. Other situations or other events that aren't related to this, they're innocent. You don't have to get angry about it. So you can sort of break it down, just get angry about a certain thing at a certain time or a certain person. The rest of your life can be okay. Okay, good luck with that one, but it's possible to do. The more you understand it, the better you can be. Now, one particular thing that crops up a lot is, can you put yourself in the other person's position? See, often after I've done some healing with a client and they were really angry, particularly if this is like they didn't get the parenting that they expected, they didn't get the mothering they expected, or they had this wonderful parental love all over the place and then it kind of disappeared because a sibling came along and stole it or some other problem happened. After a bit of healing and the anger subsides, that they start to see the person that they previously blamed, that they no longer see him as like the evil perpetrator, they start to see him as, well, they were doing the best they can, that they could, but they had their own issues they had to deal with, or under the circumstances, it was probably sensible that they had to focus on this other thing and I was sort of left getting neglected. So there is this sort of modifying bit that sees the other person as not so much an evil character out to get you, but some relatively innocent, average kind of person doing the best they could, but they just weren't up to the job. Okay, if you can make any adjustments like that in the way you think, the angry feeling will come down. Guilt. It's a little bit like anger, but this time you're to blame, or at least you blame yourself. So you feel like you've screwed up and you've hurt someone else and you feel bad. Maybe you have screwed up. Maybe you have hurt someone else. In which case, you just apologise the best you can. You do what you can to make it right, to fix the situation, or to give them some kind of compensation. Sometimes there's no going back, and it's hard to do that. But as far as possible, you make it right. But there's a different twist to this. A lot of people feel excessively guilty about stuff that they don't really have control over. This happens a lot with carer type people. They might be sort of mothers, teachers, nurses, but basically they're caring kind of folks. They see their job as to be responsible for everybody else. Like it's my job to make sure that they are happy, well-fed, nourished, educated, healing nicely, whatever. But I'm taking on the responsibility for a whole pile of things that they're going to happen. And often, this just doesn't quite work out that way. You might be able to help 9 out of 10 kids or 9 out of 10 patients, but there's always going to be the one extra that just doesn't respond the way you would like them to. Okay, you're going to beat yourself up about this, or you're going to accept that sometimes that's just how it is, and maybe you can forgive yourself, tell yourself, look, I did my best. It works most of the time for most people, but this one was just beyond my reach. You've got to accept that you are not so powerful that you can make things right for everybody all the time. It just doesn't happen. Forgive yourself. Move on. Now, the big mother of all bad emotions. This is feeling unloved. Maybe you had it and lost it, like you were rejected or you got brokenhearted when it left. Maybe you never had it because you were always a neglected kid. But this is probably, and I'll say it again, the mother of all bad emotions. There's one saying that stuck in my mind ever since I was a teenager and I had a girlfriend. You're nobody until somebody loves you. I never appreciated how true that was at the time, But now with a lot of years of hindsight, I'd say, yeah, that is true. If you don't love yourself and you don't feel like other people love you, you become like a nobody. And this is a bad place to be. Now, there can be lots and lots of different causes for this. There can be lots of different ways in which it's associated. So all of those sort of loss, grief, trauma, anxiety, depression, anger, guilt, whatever, all these things often are related to this not feeling loved. Common causes that I come across all the time: divorce, and you're the one the other person's walked out on. You feel a bit like you were ripped. Kids of divorces, many of them, and they always cop the backlash. Even if the parents try really hard to say, look kid, I still love you even though I don't like your mother anymore, the kids still suffer. So family bust-ups are huge. Death of a partner, spouse, whatever, it's pretty big too. If someone's been a big part of your life for 20, 30, 40, 50 years and they're not here anymore, that's a big adjustment. But having a long-term, happy, stable relationship with at least a few key people, this is so important to someone's health and happiness. When it's not there, or when it's suddenly taken away, life takes a big bad turn very quickly. Now, some people who've sort of had, what should I say, romantic issues, or they're unlucky in love and they've been through like half a dozen different relationships, and their answer would be, well, the best way to get over one busted relationship is get back into another one straight away. I'd be saying, no, that's not probably quite right. You've got to figure out what went wrong last time and what you've got to change to do it this time. So yeah, another relationship could solve the problem. You can start feeling loved and attached again, but don't be in a hurry till you figure out how relationships work and what happened last time. Okay, now the gist I hope you've got from all of this is that no matter how bad you feel, if you can try and analyse it, like analyse it to death, you sort of figure out the who, the what, the why, the when, the how, all that kind of stuff about it, you can minimise or at least isolate your really bad feelings, and it gives you a better chance to move on. Now, if you need help to drop it, which most people do, that's why I made video 1. You go back and you do that healing process and watch that video again. If it helps, you go into it consciously saying, okay, I'm going to drop this particular issue, I just need a little bit of extra help to drop it. And good luck with that. It can certainly work, so I just hope that you play the game right and it can work for you. Okay, that's enough for now. I'll see you in another video not too far away.